when Kiss ruled the world.
Alive really set the ball rolling for Kiss. It was accepted to be one of the best live rock records.
The more it kept going, the bigger the stadiums, the bigger the audiences, the bigger the check.
It was apparent at that time that the fans were going to be really, really important in Kiss's life. They propelled them.
You can bet your bottom dollar we wouldn't be here without the fans.
To be a Kiss fan, you had to be pretty brave because you took a lot of garbage from your peers.
When we would talk about Kiss, I would always get that reaction, well, kiss my ass.
I literally had kids my own age threaten to kick the shit out of me because I was a Kiss fan. For an adolescent growing up trying to find an identity in Kiss, I found that sense of escapism.
Kiss wasn't just guys. They were supermen on stage playing rock and roll.
Rock and roll!
As a kid, I would sit and look at Gene spitting blood, and I would think, that's real blood. How is he doing it?
One of the things they believe is that my tongue has been grafted on from a cow's tongue. The other is that when I spit blood, that it's real blood.
There was this one man, he was a sheriff, and he said, all right, where's them puppies at? I know you killed them puppies to get blood for that demon to spit out his mouth.
There have been lots of rumors about the band. Kiss was thought to mean knights in Satan's service.
You know, in truth, Kiss really didn't have anything to do with Satan. Kiss was concerned more with, you know, making out with the chicks in the front row.
We heard a story about Cadillac, Michigan, and they had a football team, and the football team kept losing their games.
I was an assistant coach, and our head coach said to me one day, you know, if we could just do something to loosen this team up, we could probably have a really good team. And I said, well, let's play rock and roll music in the locker room. I have the perfect band, Kiss. Our blitzes will be called things like Firehouse, and our linebackers will be things called Strutters.
Once they started doing strategies to Kiss music, they, lo and behold, were suddenly winning. So they invited us to Cadillac, Michigan.
We drove down a parade on Kiss Boulevard. The entire town would become Kiss Town, USA.
The members of KISS themselves applied makeup to the city manager, the mayor, the superintendent of schools. All the city officials were in full KISS makeup.
I mean, I sometimes would feel like an idiot putting the makeup on. You know, I couldn't believe all these people would do it.
It was like another planet. It was like our planet. Everyone looked like us. It was like Kiss World.
We started to get a very real sense that something else is going on here besides just songs.
There was a potential to make Kiss something much more mainstream and broad.
Kiss did indeed break away a little bit from that raw rock and roll sound. The Destroyer album was more polished.
The first single off of Destroyer was Detroit Rock City. Radio flipped it over and played the B-side, the song we didn't think they were going to play.
Beth, I hear you calling. And all of a sudden, everybody in America is playing Beth.
Beth, what can I do?
I would go out and sing, and all these girls would be crying and freaking out, and I'd hand them a rose, and they'd fist fight for it.
Me and the boys will be playing.
Beth became a huge radio staple, and because of that, we had lots of new, fresh, female blood.
It was just a major record and launched Kiss as a major force in rock music.
New York, clap your hands!
In February of '77, Kiss played Madison Square Garden for the first time.
We always held Madison Square Garden as the pinnacle. Having driven people to Madison Square Garden to see Elvis when I was a cab driver, I always said, one of these days.
I remember I was around 12, and my mom and I were in New York. I said, I'm going to play there someday, Ma. I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to play that place.
To imagine that I was ever going to perform on that stage was a little far-fetched, you know, when I was a teenager.
When we finally played Madison Square Garden, I think that then capped everything.
We were all hugging. I remember Gene looking at me and saying, we really got here. You're like, you always kept saying, in every toilet we played, it's the Garden, man, it's the Garden. He goes, well, now we're really here. And I said, I know, man, I'm freaking out. I was so scared and I was so nervous.
What can I do?
I remember when I finally got out there and I looked over at my mom and I almost couldn't play. I was so overwhelmed. I remember tears just kind of coming down my makeup. And I could see her crying. I could see my dad crying. And it was a very great moment.
Woo! Thank you, New York. Love you. It's good to be back home.
We really meant that rock and roll all night and party every day. We were that type of band.
It really was the days of sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
It was always a kind of unintentional race between Peter and Ace to see who was the real bad boy.
I was one of those guys that really believed in what he read. If I opened the magazine, there's Keith Richards, a bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand on stage. I'm like, oh man, I got to do that.
I smashed up enough furniture to furnish 10 houses, TV sets included. Once I crazy glued all the furniture to the ceiling.
I remember Ace coming in one day. Hey, Curly, look at those lights. And he pulls out this 9mm BB gun. Blam, blam, blam. And he starts shooting out the lights. Hey, that was Ace.
Gene was unique, certainly in the sex department, only because there was never enough.
Everywhere he went, he found a woman. It didn't matter who they were, what size, shape, or anything. He'd find a woman and disappear with her.
Growing up in the late 70s, there was a certain almost VIP status that came with seeing Kiss out of their makeup.
Getting pictures of the band was always a priority for the paparazzi.
It drove everyone nuts. Everybody wanted to see what they looked like.
Because we were so adamant about not having that happen, we developed this great peripheral vision. And if there was a camera over here 30 feet away, we would see it.
Gene Simmons? Excuse me, are you Gene Simmons? Could you talk to me?
I'm sorry?
You're not Gene Simmons, are you?
No, I'm the bodyguard.
Oh, my God.
Our bodyguards broke a lot of cameras and pushed around a lot of people.
I couldn't go anywhere without putting a handkerchief on my face. In fact, they were the table napkins from the restaurants we were in. I looked like a guy that was there to hold up a 7-Eleven.
One of the beauties of the makeup was I could go around undetected. That's pretty rare for somebody that was as popular as we were at the time.
The first band member I met was Paul. I had photos spread out on my desk of the band and makeup. And in the room walks this guy, and I said hello, and I went back to my photos. And then he sat down at the desk across from me, and I had no idea that he was the guy with the star. I was sort of like, oh, when's he gonna leave? I have to get back to my, my work here.
I remember fighting with a guy. He didn't believe who I was. And I'm like, by the way, I'm Peter Criss. He goes, not Peter Criss. Peter Criss wouldn't come here. I'm like, hey, man, we got into a really big fight. Where eventually I'm like taking my wallet out. I'm showing him my license like an idiot. It really did bother me after a while that no one recognized me because I really wanted to be noticed.
They reached so many people in 1976 and 77. I mean, they were in the fabric of America. It was Charlie's Angels, Starsky and Hutch, Kiss.
Being inside a limousine and being surrounded by people pounding on the roof, and you think the glass is going to break any minute.
You have to pinch yourself and go, wow, we're the Beatles now.
Coming up, Kiss Mania sinks to a new low.
What do you compute, Space Ace?
Insufficient data at the moment, Star Child.
I was so low in my chair that I wanted to crawl out of the theater.
Let's go!
Next, on When Kiss Ruled the World.